Howdy folks, Andy David, dendro instructor, University of Minnesota, back again with Brad Jones, and we had just looked at a Mesic hardwood stand, about a MH35. Now we've come across the road about maybe 100 yards, 100 meters, somewhere in there. We're in a very similar stand in terms of soil conditions, so everything that we talked about over there holds for over here, except this site was clear cut probably about 30-40 years ago. We don't have the stand history to be exactly sure, but looking around we get a sense of sizes. But notice what happens when we open up the entire stand. Okay, we can retain things. Basswood, here's our clumped basswood. We've got over here red maple. Believe it or not, this is a trembling aspen. If you went all the way up, all the way up, you'd see that bark, and you'd see that young aspen bark and those aspen leaves. And then right next to that is a sugar maple. All right, so we've got a number of some of the same species that we had across the road.
We'll also pick up the paper birch.
Oh, of course.
Sure.
Right in the background. Perhaps if I get out of the way you can see it better. We've got those clumped and some individual stem paper birch back there. Recognize these aren't really big. You know, I can just about fit my hands around them. So they're, I'm going to guess 7 inches diameter. That's not really large for 30-40 years old, but here they are nonetheless. What else do we have? If we walk this way, we'll pick up something here. Northern red oak. Let me get in the middle. Northern red oak with an old stump cut high. All right, and so this is more than likely a stump sprout. So this tree is regenerating via coppice. We've got another maple on this side, sugar maple over here. But really what I want you to point out and recognize is that some of these species, once they're harvested, can regenerate via coppice. So northern red oak can do that. That clumped basswood we saw can do that. There are a couple of birch over here on our left that can do that. The form is not always the greatest. And in fact, if you look at these, and if we think, you know, we probably had a stump here that was about 12 inches in diameter. Once it was harvested, the sprouts tend to show up in the outer side of the stump, and then when they grow up, if they can overcome the deer pressure, they tend to lean outwards in search of sun. So they don't fight with each other, and in order to do that, they kind of go out. That also keeps some of those resources in 3 stems as opposed to 1. That's still the same root system, but those trees end up being flared outward. So if you look and you're in the forest and you see clumps, especially down low, especially if there are spots in between them, you can start thinking about whether or not they were a result of coppicing. The other thing I wanted to point out back this way, we've got way in the back here, we've got a couple of northern red oaks, one here and one just outside of my reach. These are likely to be seed origin northern red oak and not a result of coppicing, but they probably came in very early after harvest. So they're probably 30-40 years old too, but just a single stem, much nicer. Look at this over here. No, not that. Oh, you can't see it that way. There's one of those ironwood here as well. We've got a clump of ironwood, and over here we've got a single stem. So we've got some larger, I don't know if you can shoot that through here. We've got some larger ironwood along with the 6 other species that we saw not only across the road, but we've also picked up one here. There was ironwood over there, but it was much, much smaller. We didn't even include it.